had a lot of fun making my New Year's special video, so I decided to do the same thing for Valentine's. But when I went to go look up Valentine's cartoon kids specials, there were so many more than there had been for New Year's. I was like, okay, I can't cover all of these. So I picked some of my favorites, and then hopefully next year, if people like this video, I'll go through and do the other shows. Today we're going to be looking at some classic hit from the OG channels, including Martha Speaks, Dragontales, Clifford the Big Red Dog, Recess, Max and Ruby, Wordgirl, and Angelina Ballerina. Get ready for dances, thieves, con artists, gaslighting, adults who peaked in middle school, and most importantly, lots and lots of Valentine candy. Martha Speaks is about a dog that, well, speaks, and her name is Martha. Basically, the title tells you everything you need to know about the show. I love this show so much. I watched it way longer than I should have. I was in high school watching this preschool children's show, but honestly rewatching this episode to make this video made me realize why I liked the show so much. Like, the humor is genuinely like pretty clever, the plots are interesting, the characters have these like funny dynamics, so that made me feel a little bit less embarrassed about watching this show meant for preschoolers as I was, you know, preparing to take the SAT. But anyway, so Martha has the ability to speak even though she's a dog because she ate alphabet soup, and on the way to her stomach, the letters lost their way and traveled to her brain, and well, she's got a lot to say, to quote the theme song. In this episode, we start off with Martha's owner, who is Helen, walking with her cousin Carolina and her friend TD. They're coming home from school and they're talking about who got the most Valentines. It turns out that Martha has them all beat. She got the most Valentines out of anyone, including a Valentine with her longtime crush on the cover, which is this Lassie knockoff dog. Their other friend Truman joins them at the house, and their other dog Skits is really sad because he wants people to throw snowballs for him, but everyone's ignoring him. They're too excited about Valentine's Day. And then Carolina opens up a card and it is incredibly grating. And then TD says, "That sounds like your voice." And she's like, "If you're not going to send yourself a singing Valentine, who will?" Iconic, honestly. They talk about how most of the cards that they got were really just Valentines that people bought at the store, so they got a bunch of repeat cards, and how they're not really very original. So TD and Carolina come up with the idea like, let's make our own Valentine's cards. And then Truman looks absolutely horrified, but we'll get to that later. They all decide that they're going to go off and start working on their Valentines. Helen and Truman decide to join TD and Carolina in making their Valentines, and Skits is very sad because this means, again, people are not paying attention to him. TD tries to work at the table, but Carolina has taken it over with glitter and girl stuff. So then TD goes into the living room to work on it. Carolina starts looking around because she can't find her glitter pen, and then Helen has glitter on her hand. Did she steal the glitter pen? And the mystery ensues for our episode. Who is the thief? Truman is sweating bullets. He is so nervous, and he finally reveals to Helen his childhood trauma of trying to do crafts and absolutely failing and getting his head glued to the desk in kindergarten. And the teacher just blames him, and you feel so bad for little baby Truman right here. But anyway, he hates crafts.
TD's gonna make really funny ones. You're gonna make something really exquisite out of cloth. Carolina's going to decorate hers with glitter. Okay, those will be tacky. But what about me?
Him calling Carolina's Valentine's tacky is so funny. Like, this little 5th grade boy has such strong opinions about aesthetics. Carolina accuses Helen of having stolen her glitter pen, and TD puts his foot down. He's like, Helen would never steal anything. And then he realizes that his notebook is stolen. He's like, oh no, my notebook, all my important stuff was in there. And Carolina's like, your homework was in there? And TD goes, no, important stuff, like my old gum and my ideas for pirate names. And I love TD's priorities here. Helen then realizes that the fabric she wanted to use to make her Valentines is missing. And Truman is like, okay, something weird is going on here. Carolina says, okay, we're all gonna go and we're gonna search throughout the house and try to find all this missing stuff because someone is taking all these things. TD says that they're looking for a criminal mastermind, someone who wouldn't stop at anything, not even stealing other people's art supplies. And I love that he says that like it's a war crime. Skits leads everyone outside, and they think that he's leading them to where all the stolen things are, but actually he was just trying to beg them to play with him, and they're like, we don't have time right now, Skits, we're looking for a thief. They go back inside and find a note accusing someone of having stolen all the supplies. Helen is like, who wrote this? And then they realize like, oh, that looks like Carolina's handwriting. And Carolina's like, okay, fine, I wrote it. I was hoping that whoever stole our stuff would confess. And TD's like, okay, you know what? no one leaves this room until we figure out what's going on. And then Carolina's like, you can't say nobody leaves this room. I get to say nobody leaves this room. TD is so fed up with this. He's like, why can't I say that? And Carolina's like, I get to say it because I didn't steal the art supplies. And TD is very offended. He's like, are you saying I did? And then Carolina pulls out the trump card. She's like, doesn't matter what I'm saying, our parents will say. And this makes Truman very nervous. And again, you feel bad for this guy because he's clearly very afraid of his parents. Martha tries to diffuse the tension by being like, hey guys, can't you just make nice Valentines without having all these fancy art supplies? And Carolina's like, we can, but you have to trust the person you're making a Valentine for. And I don't trust you guys. Everyone erupts into a screaming match, and then Martha's like, guys, I know who did it. They're like, okay, so they all go into the living room and Martha gets ready for her Agatha Christie style reveal. She walks everyone through all the steps of what happened, and she's like, everything is underneath the couch cushion. And they're amazed. They open up the couch cushion and the fabric is there, the glitter pen, the notebook, everything that went missing. And they're like, Martha, how did you know? And then they realize everything is covered in slobber. Martha says, someone did this. Someone who had the means and the opportunity and the motive. But it would have to be someone who hates art supplies. And then they realize it was Skits this whole time. He was trying to hide all the art supplies so that people would finally play with him. And Skits looks so sad here. He looks so ashamed. And Helen immediately is like, Skits, it's okay. We're not mad. Like, I'm sorry we were ignoring you. And then they all go outside to play with Skits. And everything wraps up very nicely. In the last show, we had a character named TD, and now we have a character named TJ. This is the Disney show Recess, and if any of you grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s, this show is implanted in your memory. The show centers around the 4th graders at 3rd Street Elementary and the different hijinks they get up to at recess throughout the school day. And kids have this own unique special hierarchy and they form their own little societies. TJ is the leader of a little band of rebels and nonconformists, including his friends Spinelli, Vince, Gretchen, Gus, and Mikey. I did have to rely on the Recess Wiki a lot for this episode because I remembered almost nothing about this show. I remember that I watched it and that I liked it, but I could not for the life of me remember any of the characters' names. So anyway, it's the day before Valentine's Day, and much like many of these other Valentine episodes, this features our students creating Valentines. Miss Crocky's 4th grade class is working on their cards, but everyone is shocked and disgusted by TJ's grotesque bag, as they call it, because it has a realistic human heart on it. And I think it's just so funny the big reaction they have to this. They're acting like he drew like some like disgusting slime monster. And Miss Crocky's like, TJ, people will be too afraid to put stuff in your bag. And he's like, I don't want anything put in my bag. I don't want any Valentines. And everyone's like, oh, you don't want any Valentines? And then TJ says, and I'm also not giving anyone any Valentines. And this makes everyone really upset because when you're in elementary school, getting a Valentine is a big deal because that means candy. And yeah, candy. Candy's probably what they care the most about. At the end of the day, the gang walks to Mr. Kelso's store and Vince congratulates TJ on, you know, sticking it to the man and not just conforming like everyone else. And then Gretchen says that she really likes the traditionalist aspects of Valentine's Day. And Mikey says that he thinks it's the most beautiful day of the year. And Spinelli's like, yeah, let's stick it to him. And then Gus is just like, I like candy. And we get to see, you know, like the flashes of their personalities through this exchange. Once the gang gets to Kelso's, TJ is sitting sadly at the counter and Spinelli's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely on your side, TJ. Like, I think Valentine's Day is stupid. And then one of the other characters is like, they have wrestling Valentine's cards. And Spinelli's like, what? And she runs over there and she's very excited about it. So TJ's sitting there is like, ah, no one is as anti-commercialism as me. And Mr. Kelso's like, oh, how's it going, TJ? And then he orders a sundae with extra strawberry syrup. And Mr. Kelso's like, whoa, you must have had a really tough day. And, you know, kind of the joke of like, when an adult goes to like a bar and orders like a double shot of something, he's kind of acting like a bartender in this sense where he's like, ah, tell me about your day, man. Here's your double shot of strawberry syrup in your milkshake. And TJ is saying that he feels like Valentine's Day is so commercialized and everyone gives the same cards. And then Mr. Kelso's like, well, back in my day, we handmade Valentine cards. And Nick gives TJ one of his big ideas. He gets that, you know, evil, maniacal light bulb moment. And that night he decides that he's gonna write a Valentine for every single girl in his class, but they're gonna be joke Valentines. And some of them are like, roses are red, violets are blue, your hair is smooth and silky like a bowl of cheese fondue, which honestly, I know he means that to be mean, but I feel like that's kind of a compliment. Like, I love cheese fondue. The next day, TJ convinces Hank to let him into the classroom early for a good cause, and he slips all the Valentines into the girls' backpacks. During recess, all the students are looking at their Valentine's cards, and Vince congratulates TJ on, boycotting Valentine's Day, and then TJ says, he's like, no, I put a card in every single girl in our class's Valentine bag. And then we slowly start to see the repercussions of TJ's actions. Girls are coming up to him being like, I love the Valentine you made me, it was so special. And TJ is horrified. He wanted this to really stick it to them and annoy them, but the girls are really flattered, and it seems that each of them was like, wow, TJ made this just for me. I'm the only girl he gave a Valentine to, because he said he wasn't going to give anyone a Valentine, but he gave me a Valentine. So then the girls are like, I must be really special. TJ must have a crush on me. So these girls are like getting little crushes on him all because of this Valentine thing, and TJ's like, oh no, this is the exact opposite of what I wanted to have happen. In the Ashley's clubhouse, which is basically the mean girls are called the Ashleys, and Ashley A is the head of them. And in the Ashley clubhouse, Ashley A is looking through all of her Valentines and be like, oh, these are all the same. But then she sees TJ's and she reads it and she's like, wait, is TJ actually kind of not disgusting? And she brings this up to the other Ashleys and she's like, maybe we should add him to our wall of acceptable boys. And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. But no one has a picture of TJ, so they're gonna figure that one out, I guess. TJ is panicking and he's like, okay, each of these girls thinks that I made them a special Valentine. Like, what am I gonna do? And then Vince is like, I have an idea. You're gonna go up to each of the girls and tell them that the Valentine was just for them and that they need to keep it between just us. And TJ is like, that's a good idea. Where did you come up with that idea? And Vince is like, my parents finally got cable. And I'm assuming he means like there's a TV show where he saw that like one of the characters was like, oh, we need to keep this just between us. Slowly the girls start to realize that TJ made all of them a Valentine and made all of them promise to keep it just between them. And then the girls form into this angry mob and they're super upset. And TJ's like, Him and Vince run into the boys' bathroom and the girls are standing outside very angrily. And TJ's like, my earring fell. And the girls are threatening that they are going to give TJ a non-consensual makeover. I'm assuming it's the classic cartoony thing of put lipstick on him and put him in a dress, blah, 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 whatever. And, in the early 2000s, anything girly was seen as the worst thing that could possibly happen to a dude. So this is a big threat for them. The boys are heading in the bathroom, and then Mikey suggests, why don't you just go to apologize to them? And TJ actually takes him up on this idea, and they wave a little white flag like they're, in a military defeat. And TJ goes out, and then it is the most like rehearsed apology ever. It sounds like, like when a CEO has to go out and be like, I'm very sorry that our factory plant was, pumping out thousands of tons of radioactive waste into people's drinkable water every year, but, I'm deeply sorry for my actions. And it also sounds like a YouTuber apology, like the very polished, like either like a Notes app apology or one of those YouTuber videos where they're sitting on the floor like crying, being like, I didn't mean to get canceled, like that kind of thing. But he gives his very, polished speech.
Girls of 3rd Street, I, TJ Detweiler, do hereby apologize for any hard feelings I may have caused, however accidental it might have been.
And the girls decide, okay, you know what? Like, he did put a lot of effort into these Valentine's cards, and they were really nice, and, he made all of us feel special, which is really sweet. And TJ's like, I'm so glad you guys aren't mad anymore. It is so funny that I made you joke Valentine cards, though, right? And the girls are like, joke Valentine cards? I thought you meant what you said in these. I thought you were being kind. And TJ's like, The girls are furious again and they start chasing after him. And TJ's like, next year I'm just gonna buy Valentine's like a normal kid. And Vince is like, you are never gonna be a normal kid, TJ. Max and Ruby is one of those absolutely charming shows that feels so deeply cottagecore that anytime I see a still from this show, it just brings me back to these peaceful, nostalgic memories. But rewatching the episodes, me being the youngest sibling, it has made me very upset because Ruby is such a bossy older sister and Max is normally like trying to just live his life, be iconic, and Ruby's always getting in his way. And I just feel so bad for Max in almost every single episode. In this episode, it's Valentine's Day, and Ruby and her friend Louise are at the table making Valentines. And then Max comes in and he wants to make a Valentine. And Ruby's like, Max, no, you're too little to use glue or scissors. And she's like, here's your fire engine, just go play. And Max is obviously immediately distracted by his fire engine. And then Louise and Ruby are having fun making their Valentines, but But Max still really wants to participate, so Ruby says, fine, if you sit in this exact chair and do exactly what I tell you, I guess you can stay. So Max is like, cool, great, and he's really excited to start working on his little Valentine. Max then accidentally knocks over the glue bottle, and Ruby's like, oh, I knew you were too little to do this. And she makes up the job of Max taking the letters to the mailbox. So Max goes, takes the letters to the mailbox, and comes back. And then Ruby's like, oh, I made another Valentine, go take it. And then he goes back and delivers the Valentine. And every time Max is trying to make his own Valentine, Ruby distracts him. She's like, oh, well, no, you need to do your special job of taking these letters to the mailbox. Max does this little victory dance that I feel like more of us should be using as a reaction gif and a reaction shot. So here you go for your viewing pleasure. I also forgot how great the background music is in this show. It's so jazzy and fun. Max is sick of delivering these Valentines to the mailbox, and then Ruby tries to distract him again with candy and is like, here you go, shut up, basically. She doesn't say shut up, of course, it's a preschool children's show. But then Max takes his cherry slime dribbler and shoves it in an envelope and closes it, and he doesn't know how to read or write, so he just scribbles something on it. And he has this like wet, leaking letter. He goes outside to the mail lady, and the mail lady is like, oh, hi Max, how are you doing? And then he hands her the letter, and she's like, oh, I don't know if I can mail this. And then she's very perceptive. She's like, this is for your grandma. And Max is like, yeah, it is. She's like, okay, why don't you walk with me? We'll go deliver this to your grandma together because I can't put this in the mail bag. So Max and the mail lady go and visit his grandma, and the grandma's so excited to see him. And she's like, I was making a cake for you. And then Max hands her present, and she's so excited, and she's saying, I'm going to use the slime from this cherry slime dribbler to decorate this cake. And Max is so excited. So Grandma and him use the cherry slime dribbler to decorate the cake, and then the grandma says, we can say this is from both of us. So they finally go back to the house, and Ruby and Louise are still there. Throughout the day, Louise has been collecting little pieces of all of Ruby's favorite things to make Ruby a Valentine with all her favorite items on it. And they're both very touched and very happy about this. Grandma shows up and Ruby says, Max is too little to make a Valentine. He's too little to use scissors and glue. And Grandma smugly is like, oh yeah, he's too little to make a Valentine, knowing she has this amazing cake that Max helped her make. It's time for another kids show featuring a lovable younger brother named Max. This time we are talking about Dragontales, which has been a pretty highly requested video in my comments. Now, I have a confession to make. I did not watch Dragontales as a child. I know. It's crazy. My parents didn't want me watching it because it had magic in it, so I missed out on the hype train, but later when I was a nanny, the kids that I was nannying loved it, so I did get to watch most of Dragontales. It's just, I don't have that specific early childhood nostalgia that most people do. The Valentine's episode is called Hands Together, and it starts like most episodes do, where it is Max and Emmy in their playroom, and they're making Valentine's cards. The secret drawer starts to glow, and Max and Emmy grab the magic dragon scale and make their wish, and then instantly they're transported to Dragonland. They're then in the school in the sky. They all wish each other Happy Dragontine's Day and exchange Dragantine cards, which is a very cute wordplay with Valentine. Quetzal asks Max and Emmy if they'll be joining them for their Happy Hearts Dragantines recital that morning, and the two agree happily. Wheezy says that for the recital, she wants to sing a song that Quetzal taught them, and Zach says that there's a dance that goes along with it. So Wheezy and Zach are going to teach everyone the song and dance, and it turns out actually that Emmy already knows this because her aunt taught it to her. Ord is really struggling and just cannot seem to pick up the dance like everyone else. He practices and practices, but still it's just not going very well. They're starting to wonder, like, are we gonna have to perform without Ord, which would make Ord really, really sad, and they don't want to perform without their friend. But finally, Ord is able to practice and have a breakthrough and learn all the steps, and everyone is really excited. It's time for the performance, and I just love this reaction shot they have of the dragon heads and the audience. I think this should also be used as a reaction gif. It's just amazing. I love it so much. And then the performance goes really well, and after the performance we hear this boom, like boom, 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 and like the whole place is shaking, and Ord is like, that's my mommy! And we're like, we don't see his mom, but I guess we're assuming that she's, big. Quetzal congratulates them on working so hard on the dance. Max and Emmy use the dragon scale to go back home, and Max gives his sister a card. And okay, look, I'm not the target audience for this, and I don't have the nostalgia that most people do have for this, but some of these shows are more rewatchable than others. Dragontales is obviously a preschool show, like very, very young kids, and it doesn't have the same, I don't know, interest factor or rewatchability factor as an adult that some other kids shows do, so yeah. Another show that I feel like is also for very, very young children is Clifford the Big Red Dog. And obviously the intended audience is young children, but this is, you know, again, not super rewatchable. I did love this show growing up. I loved Clifford because his owner, Emily Elizabeth, had the middle name Elizabeth. And my older sister was blonde and had the middle name Elizabeth. So I was like, oh, it's just like my sister. But anyway, you know the plot of the show. It's a big red dog, right? He's too big for pretty much everything. And the episode starts and we see that Emily Elizabeth and her friends are making Valentine's cards. Emily Elizabeth shows them how to make a heart by cutting out half of a page of paper and opening it up. And Clifford gets so excited that he starts wagging his tail. And he causes this gale force wind, the hurricane, and the glitter flies all over Jenna. And Jenna's like, oh, Clifford. And Charlie's like, oh, you look really pretty with all that glitter on you. And Jenna immediately is not mad anymore. She's like, oh, I look pretty. Jenna is such a diva. I love her. Jenna says that Valentines have to be really big and red and have hearts and stuff, and Clifford will take this very seriously. We then move into the part of the episode where it's from Clifford's point of view and where we can hear him talking to the other animals, so the dogs kind of have their own like specific language. Clifford goes to his friends Cleo and T-Bone for help making a big red Valentine, and gee, Clifford, I wonder what the solution to this episode will be. You need something big and red for a Valentine? No, I have no idea. I don't know anything that's big and red. Clifford comes up with the idea to take all of his red bones and put them in the shape of a heart, but T-Bone is sabotaging him and keeps eating all the bones. And then we see in a 10 plagues biblical Hitchcockian nightmare, these seagulls swoop down from the air and eat all of it like they're a plague of locusts. Clifford is really depressed after the seagulls eat all of his bones, and then he comes up with the idea to commit a crime. He steals the rose bush from their neighbor's yard, and it's like, perfect, these roses are big and red. And then Cleo's like, I don't think we should steal stuff, Clifford. And Clifford's like, oh, fine, I'll put it back. Mr. Bleakman comes out with his wife, and he's like, the rose bush is gone. I told you that it was gone. I was going to use the roses to give you as a Valentine gift. And his wife is like, the rose bush is right there. It's so sweet that you're going to give me the roses for Valentine's Day. And he's like, what just happened? And it's like, I'm glad he's, you know, hopefully cutting all the roses out today, because Clifford ripped that out by the roots. Like, that is not going to be growing anymore. That is going to be a dead rose bush. Then Clifford finally realizes that the big red Valentine could be, his big red self. And he lays in the shape of a heart, and it's very cute, and Emily Elizabeth is very thankful. It is again time for a wonderful, delightful cottagecore show that always brings the vibes. And this is another episode where our characters start off the episode by making Valentine cards. Angelina is making a Valentine card for her dance teacher, Miss Lily, and we get this sweet little domestic scene. At the village shop, William is buying a Valentine for Angelina, but he gets so nervous when Alice asks him who the Valentine is for. On his way home from the shop, Sammy stops William and he's like, oh, who do you have a Valentine for? On his way home, Sammy stops William and is teasing him about having a Valentine card, and William's like, I'm never actually gonna give it to her, I'm too nervous. Sammy's practicing for the yo-yo competition, and when he walks by Angelina's house, he realizes Angelina has a really, really good yo-yo, and he starts to concoct a scheme so he can get Angelina's yo-yo from her, and he is willing to go to pretty extreme lengths to get this yo-yo. Sammy goes to William, he's like, hey, I'll help you out, I'll deliver your Valentine to Angelina for you. And William is so happy, he's like, yes, thank you so much. So Sammy goes to Angelina, and he's like, here's a card from me, and she's like, from you? And Sammy's like, yeah, friends do nice things for each other. Here's a Valentine. And she's very, very surprised. And later, Angelina's talking to Alice, and she's like, Sammy gave me a Valentine card, which is very weird because he's always mean to me and teases me. And I was worried at this point in the episode that they were going to try to go for this thing where it's like, oh, he has a crush on you, that's why he's mean to you, know, like the classic thing of the little boy like pulling the girl's pigtails, and like, I hate that so much. It's so toxic, it's so annoying. But thankfully, that's not where this goes. Sammy tricks William into thinking that Angelina expected more than just a card, so they go to the store, and William spends his money on a single rose, which is so sad and so sweet that he's doing that. And then the shopkeeper lady is so nice, she, you know, like surrounds it with greenery so it looks like a full bouquet. William once again trusts Sammy to deliver the gift, and when Sammy gives it to Angelina, he's like, a rose for a rose, and Angelina is again very surprised. He then, of course, uses this to manipulate Angelina, and she lets him borrow her yo-yo. In the classroom, Alice is surprised. She's like, why would you let Sammy borrow your yo-yo? You've been practicing to be in the competition for weeks. And then Henry comes in, and he's like, oh yeah, that's the flower that William bought for you. And Angelina's like, William? No, this is from Sammy. And then that makes Alice realize like, oh yeah, I saw William buying a Valentine card this morning that had a purple bow on it. And Angelina's like, my card had a purple bow on it. And so they're like, this finally makes Angelina realize that she's been duped by a boy wearing a stupid hat. And that's a tragedy most people can never recover from. I love that Angelina here says,
Alice, I think I smell a rat.
Alice, I smell a rat. And it's like, is rat like a huge insult for them? Like, is that like a derogatory term for them? Because the way she's using it is very funny. It's like, we're mice, he's a rat.
But the rats don't run this city, we do.
Angelina brilliantly baits William into admitting that the card is from him and not from Sammy, and this leads to Sammy being very embarrassed in front of everyone. So Angelina and Alice played this brilliantly. And then Angelina is able to participate in the competition with her yo-yo, and Sammy is stuck with nothing. There's also a cute running bit throughout this episode where Alice and Henry buy each other little Valentine cookies, but they each eat their own Valentine cookie before they give it to the other person. So they end up both happy though, because like, we both got to eat a cookie, and you know, it's the thought that counts. Angelina leaves a thoughtful Valentine on William's step, and this makes him so happy, and it's a very cute ending. You thought talking about characters that were named TD, T-Bone, and TJ were confusing? Well, get ready for another show where a character is named TJ. This time we're talking once again about Wordgirl, and Wordgirl's alter ego, Becky Boxford, has a younger brother named TJ, who will only appear briefly in this episode, but I just thought it was weird that at this time in media there's so many boys' names where it's like TJ, TD, blah blah blah, whatever. Wordgirl is a parody of Superman, where she is an alien from the planet Lexicon. She crash landed on Earth, and now she's saving the city with her brilliant vocabulary. She is living her secret life as a normal 5th grader named Becky Boxford, and we open up on Valentine's Day at her school, where her and her classmates are making Valentines. She lives a pretty normal life as a 5th grader named Becky Boxford, but it's funny because some of the supervillains are children too, and the supervillains are in her class at school, which is just like so weird that like sometimes she's fighting them and then other times she's having to pretend that they're just another kid in her class, but it's like, you know that they're trying to destroy the city on the weekends, Becky. One of these supervillains is Toby McAllister, who is known for being a whiny little mama's boy and always running to his robots. In this episode, Cherishes the Word, we see that Miss Davis's 5th grade class is all working hard making their Valentines. Toby is being incredibly creepy and having very strange Reddit basement dweller energy in this scene.
Have a happy Valentine's Day, or I will destroy you. Too mushy.
Their teacher, Miss Davis, goes on and on about how they're gonna cherish these Valentines forever, and then she takes off her boot and dumps out these Valentines and starts reading them. She's like, Timmy K from 2nd grade. And it's like, this grown woman has kept Valentines from when she was 6 years old and has been storing them in her boot. And one of the students gets his hand like glued to his face, and he's like, Miss Davis, and she's like, shh, I'm busy. And he's like, okay. And that poor kid is gonna be glued to something just like little Truman was in Martha Speaks. Becky has a huge crush on her friend Scoops, and she goes up and awkwardly tries to give him this Valentine, and then Scoops says that, oh, he made a custom Valentine for a special someone too. And Becky's like, I hope that's for me. But then of course an annoying villain comes in. This time it's Victoria Best. She is essentially the only child of helicopter, you know, super high achieving parents, where she has to be the best at everything. And she's like, oh, that Valentine should be for me because I'm the best. And Scoops is like, it is not for you. And then Victoria takes out her recorder, which I think it's so funny that the instrument they have the best character play is a recorder, which is like the instrument that takes the least amount of skill. Like, it's what you play in like 3rd grade to learn hot cross buns, but that's the instrument she has, and she is able to use it to send out this song that hypnotizes people so she can mind control them. She also has the power of telekinesis, which is crazy. So she mind controls everyone. Victoria starts stealing everyone's Valentine cards, and Becky's like, why is Miss Davis not stopping this? And then we cut over to Miss Davis, who's like, I wonder if he ever got over his fear of the tire swing. And like, she peaked in elementary school and she's like reliving her memories, so she's not paying attention at all. When Becky finally snaps out of the trance, she realizes like, hey, Bob, we better go because I think Victoria Best is up to her old mind controlling tricks. And I love here that Captain Huggy Face is wearing this little Cupid outfit. And then Miss Davis realizes that her Valentines are also missing, and she's like, does anyone see any Valentines that smell like a boot? Crazy out of context. Crazy in context, too. Becky changes into Wordgirl, and Toby is delighted and creepily happy that Wordgirl has appeared, and he tries to give Wordgirl this chocolate, you know, anatomically correct human heart, and she's like, and then Toby announces that Wordgirl's agreed to be my Valentine, which she did not agree to, by the way. And then we cut over and see TJ being like so sad because he has this huge crush on Wordgirl. And it is so weird that TJ has a crush on Wordgirl, who is his sister. Like, obviously he doesn't know that Wordgirl is actually his sister, is Becky Boxford, but it's so weird that this is so prevalent throughout the show. It did not need to happen. Victoria is very jealous of this chocolate heart, and she's like, oh, you should give that to me because I'm the best. And Toby's like, well, you're not the best superhero, Wordgirl's the best superhero. And then Victoria is like, and she uses her mind control again, and this time to create chaos. She makes it seem like they stole the chocolate heart and the newspaper thing, and this makes Toby really upset. And he decides that he's gonna challenge Scoops to a duel. He's an 18th century gentleman. And then I love what Scoops does. He goes outside and he so loudly is typing on his typewriter being like, this is the last will and testament of this reporter. And then Wordgirl pops up. She's like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, ah! And he's, you know, very freaked out. And Wordgirl's like, how many robots could Toby even get on short notice? And of course we then pan over and we see that Toby has gotten a lot of robots on short notice. Wordgirl starts knocking them over like dominoes, but the robots just keep coming and coming in big waves. And then Wordgirl realizes that Scoops is in trouble, so she chucks Captain Huggy Face onto the antenna of one of these robots, and he looks so terrified. And she zips off and she grabs Scoops, and she's so excited to be, you know, holding on to him or whatever. And she's like, who is that Valentine for? And he's like, oh, it's for my friend Violet. And then she almost drops him in surprise, and he's like, whoa. And she's like, oh, it's not for your friend Becky? And he's like, no, it's not for my friend Becky. And she's very, very upset. And then we get this funny thing though, where she drops him and then his hat falls, and we finally get to see what his hair looks like under there. Wordgirl starts beating up the robots, but is like, oh, this is gonna take forever. And then Captain Huggy Face comes up with a brilliant idea. So Wordgirl flies off, and Toby's so sad that his crush is gone that the robots, you know, give him a little head pat like, they're there. And I love Miss Davis in this thing. She's like, Toby, you better have a permission slip for those robots, as if that's the problem here. Scoops is telling Violet how much she means to him, and then Victoria Beth physically inserts herself in between them to remind Scoops that she's the best, and she's wearing this like knockoff Wordgirl costume. Becky rage baits Victoria, and this causes Victoria to yell at the robots like, hey, down here, I'm the best, attack me. But of course this is not a good plan, because then the robots attack her and they're chasing after them. Wordgirl, if you save me, I'll admit that you're the best, besides me. And Wordgirl's like, okay, I'll save you, but you have to give everyone's Valentines back. And Victoria's like, fine, deal, just do it, just save me. So Wordgirl, of course, is a good person and saves her. But Scoops is about to offer his arm to escort Violet, and Wordgirl purposely puts Victoria Best in between them, effectively shutting down Scoops' romantic gesture. Victoria gives everyone back the Valentines, and no one is happier than Miss Davies, who has a weird obsession with her boot Valentines. And the show ends with Wordgirl taking Toby's robots and turning them into a glowing heart. Very cute. So that was all the Valentine specials I'll be covering today. Let me know below which was your favorite that I missed that you'd like me to cover. Right now I have a lot of different projects that I'm working on. I have a multi-hour retrospective of Unfabulous in the works. I have a multi-hour retrospective of Arthur in the works. I'm working on a Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses video, and one of the very early Disney Channel original movies, go figure. So if you have any other content that you'd like me to cover, let me know down below. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye!